Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second annual Free My Future Student Debt Summit, co-hosted by NextGen Policy and Young Invincibles. Thank you for joining us now for the kickoff event, the State of Student Debt in California. Thank you, Attorney General Javier Becerra, Assemblymember Mark Stone, Assemblymember Kari Petrie Norris, Nicole Hisatomi from the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, and Kristen McGuire from Young Invincibles for joining us this morning and opening up the Free My Future Summit. My name is Samantha Sang, and I'm a policy advisor at NextGen Policy. We are an advocacy nonprofit organization dedicated to working on California legislative, budgetary, regulatory, and programmatic efforts focused on economic and social justice issues. Like last year's summit, we are going to deep dive into student debt policy and advocacy, and over the next few days, we will be sharing updated information and free resources to help you with your student debt situation. We started the Free My Future Summit because there is a student debt crisis in America, and it affects millions of people and in nearly 4 million Californians. And given the COVID-19 pandemic, those who are student loan borrowers are especially feeling the heavy burden of that debt during this health and economic crisis. Despite the challenges that the pandemic has posed to the entire country, we are happy to report that California was able to pass groundbreaking legislation this year to support student borrowers and provide greater consumer protections all around. NextGen Policy, along with our close allies, Consumer Reports, Student Borrower Protection Center, Student Debt Crisis, and Young Invincibles, were proud to be co-sponsors of AB 376 by Assemblymember Mark Stone, which established the Student Borrower Bill of Rights. Together, we built a large and diverse coalition to help amplify the voices of student borrowers from all walks of life: college students, teachers, veterans, essential workers, and older borrowers, nearing retirement and even having their Social Security wages garnished due to their debt. But by elevating and sharing their stories of student borrowers to demonstrate the depth of the student debt crisis, California was able to pass this legislation and regulate student loan servicers and protect student borrowers. This morning during this kickoff event, you'll be hearing from our leaders and policymakers from California about these changes in law, and we thank all of them for their leadership on the issue of student debt. I'm going to pass things along now to our co-host of the summit, Kristen McGuire, the Western Region Director for Young Invincibles. Kristen.
Good morning, everyone. Like Sam said, my name is Kristen McGuire, Western Region Director for Young Invincibles. I'm really excited to be here early this morning to talk about something that's so important and so near and dear to YI as well as myself. Young Invincibles is a national policy and advocacy organization. We have 5 regional offices and based in DC. We work on a variety of issues, but today we're really going to hone in on higher education and student debt. As we all know, student debt impacts everyone across our country, but it more impacts African-American women in our country, and then here in California, Latina women carry the bulk of the debt. So not only is student debt a crisis for everyone, it's more of a crisis for people who need the most help in our country and in our state. Personally, my student debt story is that because coming from a low-income family and needing to pay for basic needs such as housing and food, I ended up having to take out $42,000 in loans. Now, the $42,000 was actually a $20,000 student loan, which is reasonable and around the state average. But because of misinformation being placed in inadequate programs and defaulting once, my loan doubled. So at this point, even though I've been working for nonprofits my entire adult life, I am still not ready for my loans to be forgiven because I was not in the appropriate program until starting to work at Young Invincibles. And these are the kind of things that the Student Borrowers Bill of Rights will remedy for us. So I'm really excited that YI, along with NextGen and all of our other partner organizations, were able to advocate for those types of protections in our state. So let's get into it. I want to take a moment to introduce our awesome Attorney General, Javier Becerra. On January 24th, 2017, Javier Becerra was sworn in as the 33rd Attorney General for the state of California. He is the first Latino to hold this office in the history of our state. The state's chief law enforcement officer, Attorney General Becerra, has decades of experience serving the people of California through appointed and elected office, where he's fought for working families and the vitality of Social Security and Medicare programs and issues to combat poverty among the hardworking families in our state. He's championed the state's economy by promoting and addressing issues that impact job generating industries such as healthcare, clean energy, technology, and entertainment. Attorney General Becerra previously served 12 terms in Congress as a member of the United States House of Representatives. And prior to Congress, Attorney General Becerra served one term in the California legislature as the representative of the 59th Assembly District in Los Angeles County. He's the former Deputy Attorney General with the California Department of Justice, and he began his legal career in 1984 working in legal offices representing the mentally ill. Attorney General, would you like to say a few remarks before we get started?
Kristen, I would, and thank you, to Young Invincibles, to the folks that have really worked hard, to NextGen Policy, Samantha, to you, all the teams. Can I just say thank you for hosting this and for inviting me and some of our state's leaders to share a few words. It is important that we gather, much work to be done, but to me, your conference theme really captures it all. Free my future. No better way of saying it, right? And that sticks in my mind because we did the most important thing we could to free your future when we voted in record numbers on November the 3rd. Thank you very much. Thank you for proving that, especially young adults really did care. I think you sent a message. And I think to the point where the occupant in the White House is unwilling to accept the message that was sent by so many young people who voted. No more Twilight Zone. We want some sense of normality. And so get ready, because now the real work begins. Because today, as you know, nearly 45 million student borrowers in this country are saddled with almost $2 trillion in student debt. In California, we're about a tenth of that. And so that's a massive amount of money. Not just amount of money, it's a massive anchor on people who want to thrive and people who want to go into whatever field is in their dreams. And it makes it almost impossible for you to feel like you have the freedom to go out there and explore now that you've got that education that you paid for. And I hope that what you realize is that you're going to have to take a whole lot of important steps. As Kristen just pointed out, it is tough. I came out with student debt. One of my daughters has some 300,000 in student debt. It is tough, but if we do things right, before you know it, you'll have ripped yourself away from that anchor and you'll be free to do what you really want. But the good thing is, especially for folks who are of modest income families, people of color, oftentimes it's the only way to get that education. And so it becomes something we must do. So all of that's important. You voted on November 3rd. On top of that, guess what? We can now expect that we're going to have partners in this effort. No longer do we have to worry that we have a federal government that is an adversary to us every time. No longer do we have to work in the future moving forward on January 20th, 2021, that we're going to have an administration that doesn't play by the rules. No longer do we have to worry administration that actually sides with the for-profit predatory colleges instead of with students, or with the student loan servicing companies instead of with students. And so you've opened the door. You set yourself free to some degree by voting on November 3rd. So I can't say anything more important today than thank you for believing that there is value in this democracy, and for you to now be able to take that baton and become this country's next generation of leaders. And I'll say another thing here. Remember what you've just gone through. These past 4 years are not, as I said, they are not normal. Do not believe that this is the way America has been run. Do not believe that this is the way America should behave. Do not believe that America thinks of you the way this administration has treated you for the last 4 years. It will be different. It still will be tough, but it will be different. But the value here is that you've seen this. You're going to carry this in your back pocket and in your heart and in your gut because you've seen what adversity can be when you don't have someone who thinks much about you, who cares what you think, and is willing to do things that harm your future. And so now you know. It's like starting at the lowest point of the mountain, and you've been climbing and climbing. It looks a lot easier now when you're halfway up to look at the top. You can get there now because you already passed half of it. And so you've experienced that. A lot of folks don't go through that till later in life when they've experienced those lows. We've gone pretty low. And in fact, we're still experiencing it now because this guy won't give up for the next 6 weeks. And so we just keep going. So here's what I have to say. Get ready. Just as we had to, at the Department of Justice, take on Ashford University, a for-profit college that was preying on students, and we had to sue them. Just as we had to sue Navient, the largest student loan servicer in the nation, because they were preying on students. Just the way we had to sue Secretary Betsy DeVos of the Federal Department of Education, because she wasn't protecting students who were borrowers. She was protecting the lending companies. Just as we had to sue Betsy DeVos to get her to move on implementing the student loan forgiveness program that lets those who go into public service actually get their loans forgiven, and yet they weren't implementing it to the point where more than 99% of the applicants were being rejected. Just as we had to take them on, and in most cases we've won, now it's our turn to say we're going to go beyond that. That part of the mountain was tough to climb, but guess what? We got there. And so now we got other things in our favor. AB 376. And we thank Assemblymember Stone for the hard work he did in getting that passed into law. Now you've got more of an ally. Starting next year, you will have an ombudsman that you can turn to if you're not getting the kind of attention you need from your loan servicer. Now you know you have some rights. Now you know you can actually try to contact folks. Now at the Department of Justice, we'll have allies that we can work with to go after those companies that aren't respecting you or responding to your concerns. And so let's work together. At the end of the day, 2021 is going to give us a far different panorama than 2020. And so get ready, get through college, get through your loans, get ready, because we need you. America is calling you to be its next leaders. And so I hope what you're going to do is you're going to take these years of the Twilight Zone, and maybe I'm dating myself. Maybe you don't remember you've never seen what the Twilight Zone is about, but just Google it and you'll see. But we're getting past those abnormal days. Get ready. Let's do this together. We have much to do. You have a great deal of future to lead. And so thank you for inviting me. Kristen, I'll turn it back over to you, but I'm thrilled. We are going to free your future.
Thank you so much. And I don't know if I did this before, but I really want to thank you for your leadership and your partnership as we try to move these policies along that impact students across our state. And you've been amazing. Secondly, the Twilight Zone had a reboot. So folks should know what it is because Jordan Peele had the Twilight Zone out this year.
Yeah, you're good.
So again, because of your leadership and the leadership of our governor, Gavin Newsom, California had a great year, and we got a lot of things right. We've all mentioned the passage of AB 376 here in California. So everyone isn't a policy or an advocacy expert. So can you put it into real terms? And you had started to do that a little bit about what your office and the role of the Department of Justice will be moving forward in relationship to this new law and other changes in California.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, like if borrowers have a problem with student loan servicers and you can't get it resolved with them, who would a borrower turn to?
Right. So Kristen, AB 376 gives borrowers a few more tools. It doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't make some of these loan servicers good guys. It doesn't make these predatory for-profit institutions good guys. What it simply says is there's a referee on the field more often. And it means that there's a watchdog that you can turn to. The ombudsman that's created for student loans borrowers becomes really important because how often do we run into that situation where we hit a brick wall, we can't get any help, and we don't know where to go. And sometimes these institutions, these office servicers and universities essentially shine you off. And where do you go? Well, this ombudsman's office, it will now be available to California student loan borrowers, so you can try to make some headway. At the same time, we'll be working with them at the Department of Justice and with the new department in the state called the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation to make sure we go after these guys. And just the same way we went after Ashford, just the same way we are right now in court against Navient, we will continue to use the laws that we have, like the unfair competition law and the false advertising laws and the California Rosenthal Unfair Debt Collection Practices Act, to pursue those for-profit schools and those servicers who don't behave. But now we have a few more tools. You just have to do us a favor. Try to keep good records. Who did you speak to? When did you do it? Phone numbers. Remember, I can go to court, but I have to have evidence. The more you keep a record, the easier I can prove that these guys are bad guys.
Thank you so much for that. And given the new lay of the land here in California and with the incoming new federal administration that you mentioned, as much as you can predict or hope for, what are the future possibilities you see for California student borrowers and the rest of the country in terms of student debt policy? I guess I could say, what's your wish list for California and the new federal government? What would you like to see happen next?
I'll be honest, and Kristen, I think you'll understand this one. I wish more students could live in California, because California works pretty hard to protect its people, including its students who are future leaders. And so we make an effort here in California. As you see from AB 276, the Assemblymember Stone's law that just became effective in January, we're going to do what we can. Not every state is fortunate to have the progressive policies of a place like California. But here's what we could do. We can take some gratification in knowing that starting January 20th, 2021, we're actually going to have a Department of Education at the federal level that wants to work with us. And I'm pretty sure we're going to get a Secretary of Education at the federal level who actually puts students first, not those loan servicers and for-profit colleges first. We're going to have, gosh, it's going to be great to see this, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that goes back to doing consumer financial protection. It's amazing. Under the Trump administration, CFPB actually dismantled its student offices, a student arm that was there to protect consumers who were students. They got rid of the office. I guarantee you, we're going to have an office at CFPB that will be there to protect students. So part of this is coming because you voted. The other thing I think we can look forward to is all these lawsuits that California has had to file to protect students. I think a Biden administration is going to work really hard to resolve those. We had to sue so that all those students who were ripped off by Corinthian colleges way back 8-10 years ago, some people still have gotten debts from these for-profit colleges. That was supposed to get resolved. I think we're going to be able to sew that up and take care of that so that a lot of these students get some of their money back, or they get these debt collection services off their back. And so we're going to be doing a lot of stuff with the federal government. Finally, we're going to have a partner to work with at the federal level. And I guarantee you, California is not going to stop. If there's another good idea around the corner, we're going to find it. And you're going to see that we'll be able to implement it. And guess what? In the coming future, it's going to be you all who are actually the leaders who are implementing and administering all these good policies.
Wow, that's great. It's so energizing to hear you speak and so inspirational. And it's just really great to see our elected leadership being hopeful again. So I think unless you have any last comments, I do want to thank you for helping opening up our conference for us today. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
And Kristen, I just close by saying this. I hope all of you have a great Thanksgiving, make it safe and healthy. But having 3 daughters who have now gone through undergraduate studies, I can tell you, this future is bright. Do not stop. Do everything you can to make it clear. You will be free to do what you want in the future. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And I just want to repeat your message to everyone, get ready. So that is an awesome message and a great way to encapsulate everything we've talked about this morning, and have a great holiday as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, Sam, I think I want to pass it back over to you.
Yes. All right. Thanks, Kristen. And thank you again, Attorney General, for joining us this morning and for being an advocate for student borrowers and the work you do for all Californians. And thanks, Kristen, for co-hosting the summit with us and for sharing your story. Next, we're going to be hearing a message from California Assemblymember Mark Stone of Monterey Bay, Assembly District 29. Among other important pieces of legislation he has authored, he carried AB 376, the Student Borrower Bill of Rights, like you've been hearing so much about, establishing the strongest set of consumer protections in the nation for those with student debt. For the last several years, the Assembly member has served as chair of the Assembly Judiciary Committee. He has been a longtime member of the Assembly Human Services Committee and is also known as an environmental champion. In short, Assemblymember Stone is a strong progressive leader in the California legislature and has been a steadfast champion for student loan borrowers.
Hello, I'm Assemblymember Mark Stone, and I'm very pleased to be with you this morning to talk about student loans and some of the challenges we've had over the last number of years getting an industry to come into line that really fought coming into line and has provided a lot of detriment to student loan borrowers. And while we talk about and try to reduce the overall load of student debt, I think it's important that we regulate appropriately the student loan servicing industry. And that's why we proposed AB 376 and some predecessor legislation, which provides for licensing for student loan servicers. We had a couple of hiccups over the last couple of years, and the banking industry and the student loan servicer industry was able to slow us down a little bit, but in the end, they lost, and they lost to common sense and a structure that provides what should always be there for consumers: protection against predatory practices, protection against just the money-making machine that the servicers provide, and to give student loan borrowers the tools that they need to ensure that they're being treated fairly and appropriately. California has taken some steps recently by even creating a consumer financial protection bureau at the state level and ensuring that the state is looking hard at bad practices and poor practices from the industry that is affecting student loan borrowers. So even though we struggled, the consumer advocates that we have that are part of this seminar today, and the broad-ranging support, including some of you out there letting your legislators know that you wanted these consumer protections, was ultimately really very important. We could not have done the heavy lift without that broad level of support. So California right now has the strongest consumer protections for student loan borrowers of any state. And that was really the genesis of that was a failed federal system where the previous administration, the Obama administration, had put in place some positive momentum around protecting student borrowers. But in the current administration, the Trump administration, they walked all of that back and in fact gutted any consumer protections that had been there before. So today is a day to listen and to learn and to be active in Free My Future. It is a great seminar. I'm happy to be able to talk to you today, and enjoy your day. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember Stone, for your message and for carrying the Student Borrower Bill of Rights. Next, we're going to hear a message from Assemblymember Cotty Petrie Norris of Laguna Beach, Assembly District 74. The Assemblymember is a businesswoman and community leader who was elected to the State Assembly in 2018. In her first term, Assemblymember Petrie Norris has secured millions of dollars in funding for projects in her district and introduced important legislation to combat sea level rise, improve services for veterans, and help small businesses. Assemblymember Petrie Norris serves as the chair of the Assembly's Accountability and Administrative Review Committee and as chair of the Select Committee on Student Debt. She has also served on the Assembly's committees on Appropriations, Revenue and Taxation, and Veteran Affairs. As chair of the Assembly Select Committee on Student Debt, she has raised the stories of student borrowers across California to the policymaking table.
Hi, this is Assemblywoman Kati Petrie-Norris. I represent California's 74th Assembly District. Thank you to NextGen Policy for hosting this important Free My Future Student Debt Summit. As chair of the Assembly Select Committee on Student Debt, I am excited to spend a few moments with you today to talk about all the latest developments for student borrowers here in California. And the good news is that we made some great progress in 2020. After years of hard work, AB 376, the Student Borrower Bill of Rights, authored by my colleague, Assemblymember Mark Stone, was signed into law this year by Governor Newsom. I am a proud co-author of this bill. This bill provides critical, first-in-the-nation protections for California's student borrowers. The provisions of AB 376 are far-reaching. This legislation will create and enforce industry-wide standards for student loan companies. It will ban abusive student loan servicing practices that take advantage of young and vulnerable students. It creates minimum standards around application of payments, paperwork retention, and specialized staff training. And it establishes a student borrower advocate within the Department of Business Oversight to review complaints and data related to the student loan servicing industry. Ultimately, student borrowers are now afforded the same important protections that we already give to consumers with mortgages and credit cards. The student debt crisis has plagued our state and our nation for decades, exacerbated by bad actors who take advantage of students seeking a college education. And now, faced with the unprecedented challenge of COVID-19, many of our student borrowers are struggling now more than ever before, which is why I'm even more grateful to have had AB 376 signed into law. I was proud to help lead the charge on a bill that had such a vast coalition of support. From all of the partner organizations that are joining us today, to the UC Student Association and the California League of Conservation Voters, and so many more. You all played a major role in pushing this bill across the finish line. Over 3.7 million student borrowers that call California home, this bill will have a tremendous impact on the well-being of our students and the well-being of our state. Looking ahead, we know that there is much more work to be done. As chair of the Select Committee on Student Debt, I have led committee hearings to ensure that student voices are heard in order to end abusive practices and demand transparency from the industry, and to empower borrowers with financial literacy and more. AB 376 lays the groundwork we need to make future changes for our students, which will be absolutely necessary in the coming years as we recover from this current financial crisis. Again, I'm thankful to join you all today, and I greatly appreciate and admire the work being done to help our student borrowers not just survive, but thrive all across the great state of California. I look forward to continuing to work alongside all of you to help alleviate the burden of student debt and to make the California dream a reality for more students here in the Golden State.
Thank you, Assemblymember Petrie-Norris, for your strong support in helping us get AB 376 across the finish line, and for your leadership chairing the Assembly Select Committee on Student Debt. I'm happy to turn it over now to our special guest speaker, Nicole Hisatomi, the Deputy Commissioner of Legislation at the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, otherwise known as DFPI. As Deputy Commissioner at DFPI, she works as a bridge between the department, stakeholder groups, and the legislature to ensure policymakers understand the impact legislation can have on the department. And prior to her role at the department, Nicole worked in the California State Assembly, first as a legislative aide, then as a legislative director, focusing on a variety of issues that include consumer protection. And she also had a hand in AB 376. So Nicole, can we turn to you now?
Hi, As Sam mentioned, my name is Nicole, and I'm the Deputy Commissioner for Legislation at the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation. And our job as a department is to oversee financial products and services by enforcing laws and regulations to protect consumers through increased consumer awareness and the prevention of potential abuse. As I'm sure you'll all agree, this has been quite a year, but it is clear that the California legislature has taken decisive action to ensure California's financial regulator is best positioned to protect consumers. They even changed our name from the Department of Business Oversight to the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation. This year, the legislature passed both AB 1864, the California Consumer Financial Protection Law, and AB 376, the Student Borrower Bill of Rights. AB 1864, authored by Assemblymember, though now Senator Limon, expanded the department's oversight to previously under-regulated products and services and gave the department further authority to act against unfair, deceptive, or abusive actions. And as you've already heard several times by now, AB 376, authored by Assemblymember Stone, gives the department the ability to enforce new servicing standards to best protect consumers. And should the legislature provide us the necessary funding, we'll also be able to perform market monitoring research and establish the student loan ombudsman. These two new laws will help the department identify predatory behavior and give us additional authority to enforce the law. With over 3.8 million borrowers and $147 billion in student debt, it is incredibly important to the state and our department that borrowers are treated fairly and within the confines of the law. But for us to leverage our oversight and regulatory abilities most effectively, we do need help. While our department conducts exams of student loan servicer licensees at least once every 36 months, it is important that borrowers reach out to the department if they have a complaint. Complaints help us locate potential problems. So if a student loan servicer, or frankly, any industry we oversee breaks the law, we need to hear from you. This information you give us through your complaints help us compile data to identify trends in complaints or behaviors we were unaware of. So if you have a complaint with your student loan servicer or anyone we oversee, please contact us. You can call our Consumer Services Office or file a complaint via our website. Our website address is dfpi.ca.gov. The department is working very hard to live up to our new name, and while we hope you never have to contact us, if you do, know that we're here to ensure our licensees are following the law and treating consumers fairly. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us here today, Nicole, and for telling us about this wonderful new department that has been around, but we can also now turn to you for a lot more tools to help student borrowers. You already touched a little bit about, how things will be playing out with AB 376 and some of the other parts of the law, but again, maybe just breaking it down a little bit further, can you tell us in some practical terms if I'm a student borrower and I do have a complaint, or what can I expect from DFPI if I turn there?
Yeah, so like you had just said, we're the folks you contact if you have a complaint with a student loan servicer or you think your student loan servicer broke the law. So you could file a complaint via our website, or you could call our office. Our Consumer Services Office is great at helping you file a complaint, make sure you're giving us the correct information you'll need. Sometimes all it takes is a quick email from the department reminding people of what they're supposed to do to get something resolved. Sometimes we have to take decisive action. It kind of depends on the type of complaint and what's happened. But you can contact us with your complaint. You can also go to our website. We have links of information about how the bills are enacted, as well as other resources and information about student lending and other folks you can turn to if you need to talk it out a little bit more.
Wonderful. Thanks for explaining that down for us here. And I certainly hope borrowers attending the summit will be sure to find you and help gather complaints on the bad actors out there on in the student loan servicing industry. And so just for the last few minutes we have here, Nicole, given the COVID-19 pandemic, California and the federal government have temporary payment relief to student borrowers, such as halting repayment bills and suspending interest. And right now, though, the federal reliefs are scheduled to end January 1st of next year, 2021. And so, that's right around the corner. Can you tell us what your thoughts are, and perhaps what does DFPI anticipate with the looming student debt cliff? Maybe, what do you hope to see either in California or at the federal level in the future for student borrowers?
I mean, I think it's going to be really difficult. Despite all of our wishing, the pandemic is not yet over. Folks are still without jobs, and more students are going to graduate into an uncertain job market, which is all very scary. But as several people before me have said, I think things are going to look up. This next year, the department will be working to implement both the bills I mentioned. We are gearing up our consumer services office to make sure we're ready to take your complaints. And we would love to work alongside federal government who is also working to protect consumers. And so for all the reasons mentioned before, I think we'll be ready, and I think student borrowers will have folks in their corner this upcoming year.
Yes, I'm sure all of us will be greatly anticipating what changes may come in January, certainly hoping that it's good news that will come from millions of student borrowers looking down perhaps an already dampened holiday season with all there is. But thank you again, Nicole, for joining us this morning, and to all of our guest speakers. We're at the end of this event, but we hope to see everyone virtually attending the summit at the next event, starting at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time, or 1:30 p.m. if you're on the East Coast, the State of Student Debt in America panel, where Congresswoman Katie Porter will be speaking. And join us for the rest of the summit today and tomorrow. For more information and to register, please go to nextgenpolicy.org/freemyfuture. And enjoy the rest of the summit.